Thank you. Thank you. Some of the faces are very familiar to me. For those who are not, if you've been to Dallas, you've probably seen part of this presentation before at the PLA project in Dallas. Competency-based education is nothing new. It's been around for ever since higher education started, which is thousands of years old. At ACC, we got into competency-based education in fall 2013, and I'll tell you our story. What was our pathway into competency-based education, and what are some of the lessons we learned from there? One of the things that I saw when I presented before about competency-based education is people have a lot of questions. How do we? What do we? So I'll talk to you about Fast Track to Success, which is a project that is aimed towards institutions that want to set up a CBE program and answers those questions. How do we do? What do we do? What do we do first? What do we do next? What do we do third? And how do we sustain it? Okay, so what we're going to talk about is the problems, the CBE solution, how you build a CBE program, and what is the state of PLA at ACC. So whenever you start something new, whether it is prior learning assessment, new methods for prior learning assessment, a competency-based program, a new modality of delivery, you have to identify what is the problem you're trying to solve. You have to have a problem you're trying to solve. If I try to get into CBE just because TSTC is doing CBE, or just because Eastfield College is doing CBE, then I'm in it for the wrong reason. Because that's not a good enough reason to get into it, because the investiture of time and money and effort is so large that unless you are looking at a particular problem you're trying to solve, you're going to run out of steam very fast. So we had many, many different problems that we were trying to solve. The first problem was the skills gap. You know, Rex talked about it in his address, that employers will come and tell you, this is what the students are not coming out with. And also we were looking at future down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what were employers needing and what skills were students coming out with, and we found that there was a skills gap. The second problem we were trying to solve is non-completion. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue in any program. Whether you look at a 2-year college, you look at a 4-year college, completion rates around the country are dismal. Okay, so, and if we look at Texas in particular, look at how much money Texas is losing in lifetime income for students who actually don't get to a bachelor's degree or complete a bachelor's degree. Look at the student debt. We've heard horror stories about the for-profit sector, that students go in there, amass a whole bunch of debt and don't complete. But actually, similar stories are happening even in the nonprofit sector. And what are some of the reasons for not completing? Well, some students say, well, I just couldn't do it because I just ran out of time. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't make it to class. And so we looked at that second problem. Our third problem was, look at how many total declared majors we had in our program, and look at the total completers who were getting certificates and degrees at the end. Granted, our program is very unique. We have students who come in, they come and take 3 courses, 4 courses, just to update their skills, and they leave. Yet we wanted students to come in and not just take those 3 or 4 courses. We wanted to develop a system where we had certificates, marketable skills awards, and degrees that we could offer to these students. So that was our third problem to solve. Our fourth problem was distance learning. In of itself, distance learning is not a problem, but getting students to succeed in distance learning, setting up your distance learning program so that they succeed, is a problem. And it's a nationwide problem. And distance learning courses are increasing. Over 7.1 million students were taking at least one online course. And the whole landscape is now changing. I'll talk about that in a minute, even in distance learning. Awarding credits for MOOCs. We've heard about the Arizona State program. Have you heard about that? Arizona State and edX, the Global Freshman Academy program. And then there is Oak State. Oak State is saying, well, if you can take some computer science courses, there are 2 courses that they've identified in computer science, through edX, MITx, or through BerkeleyX. If you can take those and you can come in and show us proof of completion, which means you have to pay, we will charge you $100 for giving you credit for that class. There's your PLA right there, prior learning assessment. So,
are those courses graded?
Yes, MOOCs are graded. So you can take a MOOC in 3 different ways. You can audit a MOOC, you can get a certificate for a MOOC, actually 4 different ways. You can audit a MOOC, you can get an email saying, yeah, you completed this course. You can get an official certificate for $100 or $95. Or if you have $2,252, you can get Harvard University credit for that course if it's being offered through HarvardX or whichever university is offering that. So you can take a MOOC in all those different ways. So awarding credit for MOOCs, which was something that institutions laughed at a few years ago, is actually becoming a reality. MIT has their, have you heard of the supply chain management program at MIT? They're saying take 1 year in the MOOCs, come back, take a comprehensive exam with us, prove to us you've learned what you've learned, then you spend 1 semester on campus at MIT and we give you an MIT degree, a master's in supply chain management. Similarly, there are universities that have set up completely online. Georgia Tech, a very well-known name in technology education, has set up a completely online with edX through the MOOCs Masters in Computer Science program, which went live in spring 2016. So that was another problem. How do we incorporate this? So our CBE solution came in the form of a TACT grant. The TACT grant was the Trade Adjustment Act grant, which looked at populations which needed some help in getting employment, such as veterans, returning veterans, underemployed people, and to provide them with a competency-based education curriculum using substantial interaction, and it was all distance learning. So that came to us in fall of 2012. We found out that we did indeed get the grant. It was a $2.1 million grant, huge grant. And we started working, and our first courses went live in fall 2013. We were supposed to develop 25 courses over the life of the grant, which finished on March 31st of this year. We developed 41, and we're still going at it. So I'll talk to you about our journey during that. So let's talk about CBE. What is competency-based education? And this is a direct quote from the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education is so positive about competency-based education. I believe they've issued Dear Colleague letters starting way back a few years ago, and there are many of them that have been issued about competency-based education. Transitioning away from seat time in favor of a structure that creates flexibility. So look at traditional education. If you look at traditional education, you have your seat time and you have your learning, and they're both constant, right? We give the student a syllabus on the first day of class, and we say, okay, here's what you're going to learn. Okay, you're going to learn the alphabet from A through Z. We're going to spend 16 weeks doing this. We're going to go week 1, week 2, week 3. I'm going to give you an exam in week 5. I'm going to give you an exam in week 10. And I'm going to give you an exam in week 15, right? So the really smart student cannot come weeks 1 through 4, comes in week 5, takes a test, misses out weeks 5 through 9, and comes in week 10, takes the test, and comes and takes the final, right? Okay. Or there is a student who's lagging behind, who you find out in week 5, oh, this student was lagging behind, all the time. And I didn't come to know till week 5. That's a bit late, because at least in my class, if by week 5 I find out that this student is lagging behind, there is no way it would require an act of God for that student to get caught up. There's no way they'll get caught up. At that point, they can either choose to stay in the course and get a fail, or they can withdraw from the course, and both are bad. Why? Because that student invested the time and the energy to come to that class with the notion of finishing that class. It's bad for that reason. It's bad for a second reason, is that for the bean counters who are counting who's completing my course, that's one less bean to count, right? So it's bad for both ends. So, so that model obviously works in some cases, but in some for certain populations of students, it doesn't work. Okay, in competency-based education, the learning remains the constant, but the time becomes a variant. Rex was talking about the student at A&M, Texas A&M Commerce, who finished his bachelor's in a very short amount of time. Texas A&M Commerce has the totally CBE organizational leadership bachelor's program. And they had a student who finished a statistics course in 36 hours. Why? Because the student had already done a lot of work in that. However, the fine arts course took that student significantly longer time to finish, even though they were both in the CBE modality. So as you can see, the learning stays constant and it's the time that becomes the variable, right? And here is the important one: as they demonstrate mastery of academic content regardless of time, place, or pace of learning. Now, this place, a lot of CBE programs are online, and there is this false notion that all CBE programs are online. They're not. There are many CBE programs, for example, the one that TSTC is doing in Hutto is not online. It's all in class. There are roughly about 56% of CBE programs that are online, and there are roughly about 44% that are not online. So how do you vary the place in a classroom? Isn't a classroom where I walk into the class and I stand here and say, "Good morning, class. Today I'm going to talk about the letter A." Isn't that what a classroom is about? So that's where the flipped classroom model comes into play, where the student does the learning through videos, through lectures previously recorded, and when they come to class, what do? They demonstrate mastery of what they're doing. Polk State Community College started a open entry, flex entry, flex exit. Every Monday, a student could enroll in the program. And it's a flex exit. They can finish as fast as they can. And it's a hybrid CBE program. It's a hybrid program where they do the learning at their pace, at their place, but they have to come into a lab and demonstrate mastery of what they have learned. And the person who started that program and got it off the ground is now at UT Austin as the executive director of the Center for Lifelong Learning, and he's setting up CBE programs at UT Austin. Okay, so under the TAC grant, like I said, we were going to develop 24 courses. We have 41 right now. We were in a consortium with Sinclair and Broward, and our mentor was Western Governors University, because Western Governors had already set up a CBE program. When they came for the first meeting with us, we decided that their model was not for us. No, we wanted to learn about CBE from them, but not adopt their model, because their model was significantly different from what we were doing. We wanted to provide accelerated education and leading to employment. So this leading to employment piece is critical, because we wanted to make sure that the students who are getting this education are going to go out and be employable. Now, we can't guarantee them a job, but we can guarantee that they're employable, that when an employer looks at their resume, they say, "Wow, this is great." You know, so I'll talk about how we worked at that. And we recruited eligible veterans and the underemployed. First, we started with veterans. And our vetting process and our enrollment process was very strict, so that we set the program up for success and we set the students up for success. And I'll tell you all about that in a minute. So we had 4 different missions. We wanted to recruit the student, we wanted to retain the student, we wanted to recognize the work the student had done through a reward. And what is the reward the student gets? They get either a certificate or a degree. Something that gives them some confidence that they have completed this. So this was a win-win for our students. It was a win-win for industry. Why? Because it was flexible. So these returning veterans who were either employed in full-time jobs or otherwise were not able to attend class, they could, it was flexible for them. It was accelerated. They could move through the curriculum as soon as they master a competency. And also it was accelerated because we were providing some credit for prior learning. Particularly people who are coming from the military, they've got such rich experiences they come in with. And they've taken courses, and how do we provide that credit for that prior learning? And I'll get to that in a few minutes. Industry alignment, industry skills that were aligned with competencies. And again, we had a very robust and a very helpful industry advisory board that was helping us out in this, setting up the curriculum. So this was the result. Our student success, and this is just in 1 year, we went up, our student success rate went up, our enrollments went up 26%. And that was just in the first year after we launched the program. And the successes kept going up in the subsequent years. And our completers went up in the first year, we went up significantly in completion. And these were the pathways, these were the rewards. We had a Marketable Skills Award that included these 4 courses. And this Marketable Skills Award, based on what we learned through this TAC grant, this Marketable Skills Award is now being given as part of our Capital Academy, which is a program where we are bringing high school students to our college, and we are having them take 4 courses while they're in high school, and this is the award they're getting, the Marketable Skills Award. And we had all these certificates that were available through our CBE program, and these certificates led to these degrees. So it was a stacked program. 4 courses, a certificate typically contains about 8 to 10 courses, and then of course a complete degree. Right? So out of this program, we had some new programs coming in and new grants that we were able to get. And let me tell you a little bit about those. Well, you know, the Accelerated Program of Training is the program we created using the TAC grant. We called it APT. Our slogan was, at your pace, at your place. And it was highly successful. We thought we would maybe take 300 students through the program. We have currently taken almost 900 students through the program. It has been enormously successful. And then we had some certificates, career expressways, and as we just launched in spring 2016, the Women in IT program. We all hear about women in IT, the paucity of women in IT. We have $30-some thousand left over from a Gates Foundation grant. Our Dean, Linda Smarzik, who was doing that Gates Foundation grant, she called the Gates Foundation. They said, well, you can travel with that money, go to conferences, and she thought that was a colossal waste of $30-some thousand. She pulled together a team, and within 2 months, we had the Women in IT program off the ground. The strength of that program is that we are offering, besides all the courses we are offering in APT, we're offering 12 modules to women or anybody who wants to take them, and they're free to the entire Austin community. Anybody who wants to come and attend them can come and attend them, and modules about how to negotiate a salary, how to talk in a room when there are 12 guys and you're the only female in the room, you know, how to get them to listen to your technical ideas, how to how to draw boundaries, and how to succeed in the workplace. Challenges that all women in IT are facing. So that was the Women in IT program. The Capital Academy, what I just talked about, was the Marketable Skills Award that we're giving to the high school students. We just started that about, I think, in fall 2015. We had some teething pains at the first few days. Our director of Capital Academy was chasing school buses between Highland Campus and Highland Business Center. And finally, we got everything right, and it's going pretty well. And then we have some new projects that are in the works, the Breakthrough Models Incubator, and this is Fast Track to Success. Fast Track to Success is a Perkins State Leadership Grant. Ann Kennedy is our multimedia developer on the grant. I'm the director. We are producing a set of very high quality videos. We are interviewing subject matter experts from around the country. And these videos are drilled down into details on what do you do about setting up a competency-based program? How do you get faculty buy-in? How do you do student support? How do you do the back end? How do you do financial aid? How do you do transcripts? What do you do about registration? And this is going to be a repository for anybody who wants to come in and who wants to set up a CBE program. That's going to be a one-stop place for them to go. We have just applied for a follow-on grant to Fast Track to Success, and we are keeping all our fingers and toes crossed to see if we get it, and that is to spread this around Texas, where I will go around to 7 places in Texas in different regions and hold 2-day hands-on workshops with any college that wants to set up a CBE program, whether it's a university, a four-year college, or a community college. And we will hold a first of its kind best practices CBE conference in Austin as part of that grant. So we're expanding that. We have also just partnered with an informal partnership with the Institute for the Texas CBE work group that is providing broad overall strategy for CBE. And they have a leadership board that consists of 6 to 7 people. And they have about 30 members in that work group. And we have just partnered with them that they're going to provide the broad strategy, whereas Fast Track to Success is going to provide the drill down, the nitty-gritty details of how to set up a CBE program. So how do you build a CBE program? Well, you do it in one long, hurried step at a time. No, that's the only way to describe it. It is a long, arduous process. It requires a lot of work up front. If you have a student who has the ability to accelerate through your course in 36 weeks, you can't say, hey, I'm going to put up the rest of the labs next week. Why don't you check back next week? Or 36 hours, sorry, not weeks, 36 hours. And so everything has to be done up front. So these are the first 6 to 8 months when we were planning. These were our lessons learned. What do we do in the first 6 to 8 months? Well, firstly, enlist faculty supporters. That's the most crucial thing in setting up a CBE program. You cannot do it without faculty support. You know, as Mary Hendricks of Texas A&M Commerce, you know, Texas A&M Commerce houses the Institute for Competency-Based Education. And Mary Hendricks says, she says, pick your bell cows first. You know, and it's very important when we say faculty supporters, you're going to have a set of faculty that's going to say rah, 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 and then you're going to have a set of faculty that's going to say nah, 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 right? Well, it's important to include both in the conversation because it becomes a system of balance, right? So you have to look at your industry leadership council. Who are your, particularly programs like ours? You know, if you're setting up an English program, you don't need an industry leadership council. You probably need some subject matter experts in there. But a program like ours, where we don't know what's coming 5 years down the road, it's the people who are in the trenches, who are working in industry, who know that, right? So it's very important to set that up right at the beginning. What we did was we designed a master course template, and I'll show you that master course template in a minute. We designed a master course template. I worked with the instructional designer. We got that master course template off the ground, and everybody, with the exception of 2 faculty members, used that master course template. everybody who was it just made it so easy, and it made it real easy on the students. We looked at all of these things, and here define criteria for and methods of granting credit for prior learning. So you can't do this as an afterthought. You can't do this after you get your CBE program off the ground, or any program, even if it's a non-CBE online program. You can't get the program off the ground and say, oh, wait a minute, you know, we had Joe's student come in and Joe's student said, well, I've got 3 degrees, how can I get credit? You have to define all these procedures up front. Okay. And then what did we do in the next 6 to 8 months? And this was the next 6 to 8 months. We defined what were our stacked tracks of degrees and certificates, which I just showed you in a prior slide. We created a recruitment video, because remember, this is not the field of dreams. If we build it, they won't necessarily come, right? So we created a recruitment video. We had our recruitment events, course video and engagement tools. So how did we recruit? We held info sessions. We had our department chair, we had the director of the grant, Sam Greer, Mary Coles, Linda Smarzik. They were at these info sessions. They told the students what the sessions were about. How did we, recruiting students is one thing. How did we enroll students? Okay. It was not an open entry program, because we knew that not every type of student would succeed in this program. We know that. And that is not a commentary on the intellect of the student. I have 2 children. I have a daughter who's graduating, walking tomorrow at St. Edward's University, and I have a son who's a professional in the industry. My daughter would not be able to last for 1 day in a distance learning class. She would fail it on the first day. She has to have that in-class discussion, interaction. That's why she loves St. Edward's. Small university, small classes, 10 to 12 students per class, right? Okay. But then, on the other hand, you have students who thrive in a distance learning environment. And this was not just a distance learning environment. You not only had the potential to accelerate, this was also a very different kind of course structure. And once I show you the template, you'll understand why we had to screen the students before we allowed them to get in the program. And the screening process was a 2-step process. We had the student support specialist, Judy, who is like a nugget of gold in this program. It wouldn't run without her. And so Judy first met with the student. Then Mary Coles, our department chair, personally interviewed every single one of the 800 some students, 900 students that we have in the program. And then we would advise the student, can you succeed in this program or not? And tell the student, yes, you're cleared to take the APT program. And which is what caused our success rate to be high, because we ensured that we are setting up our student for success.
What kind of criteria questions did you ask on that?
Basically, we informed the student that this is the rigor of the program. This is how the courses are set up. We tried to judge through questions if they're equipped to take a distance learning class. Now, many colleges and universities, before a student can take a distance learning class, have the student take a self-assessment, like a 100-question self-assessment, and only if they score 70 or higher can they take distance learning. ACC doesn't have that system yet. I believe there's something that's in the works. So we had to do that assessment. Are they suited for a distance learning class where they're not in a classroom? So if I walk into a classroom Tuesday and Thursday, and something is due on Thursday, before I leave on Tuesday, I'm going to tell the students, hey, don't forget, you know, you owe me the letter A on Thursday, right? So that doesn't happen in this environment. Yes, I can send out an email. I do. I say, happy Monday, everyone. Remember, this is due today, or this is due this week. But just because I'm sending out the announcement or the email doesn't mean the students are reading it. I have proof that students are not reading it. You know, because somebody will email me and say, hey, you know, there's an announcement, there was an email, you know, so yeah, so those are the kind of, we tried to judge that were Were they ready to be in that environment? And some of them were clearly not. No. How much hand-holding do you need? A student who needs a lot of hand-holding is clearly not a candidate for this, right? And once you see our student profile, once I tell you about our student profile, it just blew us away, the profile of the student that came into this program. And then in the second and third year, that's when, you know, the big crunch is over. You can actually take a breath in the second year. You can actually say, oh my gosh, we did this. Now what? Now what do we do? Now how do we improve this? What do we do as the next step? Okay, so that's what, and the whole cycle starts again. And now we're looking at financial aid registration and human resources. We're looking to see how to handle the back end. And if you talk to people who are doing CBE around the country, that is the biggest challenge for them right now. The Department of Ed has identified experimental sites for financial aid. ACC was actually accepted as an experimental site, but there was a caveat with that you had to do direct assessment. And because of that, ACC said, no thank you, we're not doing that right now. So there are experimental sites with financial aid. Polk State, which I talked about earlier, is one of the experimental sites that's been identified. So we're looking to see what kind of data comes out of those experimental sites, what they've done, what kind of best practices come out of that before we look at the next steps, which is financial aid registration. So as I told you, the students could accelerate. Now, some like Polk State has set up that open entry program. Every Monday a student can enroll. Everything is manual. The student has to be enrolled manually. So they have 60 students in the program. TSTC has an open entry program for CBE. Everything is manual. Okay, with 900 students, we can't do everything manually. We just can't. So we provided an acceleration program that stayed within the parameters, within our restrictive parameters. They could take a 16-week class. They could accelerate, take a 12-week. They could accelerate further, and they could take it as an 8-week class. So they could take 2 classes in the semester, first 8 weeks and the next 8 weeks. They could take 3 classes in a semester, 3 levels of classes in a semester, where they could start in a 16-week, accelerate through, finish the class in the first 4 weeks, enroll in the 12-week for the follow-on class, and enroll in the second 8 weeks for the next class. Now, Cayuga College in the Finger Lakes region in New York is doing something very interesting. They're doing 16-week, 12-week, 2 8 weeks, and 3 5 weeks. They're offering all courses in that modality. So they're giving all kinds of acceleration options. So we worked within the parameters of the college. That's how we allowed the student to accelerate. So any questions before I move on? Anything? These were, the way we did this. That doesn't mean this is the right way to do it. We, all of us who did CBE under this Department of Labor grant, we literally built that baby as it was flying off the runway. We had 6 months to develop the courses and offer them. And that's, that's hardly any time at all. So PLA, what is PLA? The Council for Adult and Experiential Learning says it is the process of earning college credit for college level learning acquired from other sources. And these other sources could be anything, work experience, professional training, military training, etc. PLA is becoming very important. There are universities, like you may have heard of Northwood University, which is in the Dallas area. They're doing a lot of stuff with PLA. A lot of companies like Toyota at one time had SACS accreditation. So that's the other thing that we need to worry about as colleges and universities, is once these corporations go into that, that's going to be a big red flag. So we have students coming in with work experience, with professional training, open source learning from the web, and this is where the MOOCs come in. If they've taken a programming fundamentals class from edX, using programming fundamentals using Python from edX, and they come to us and the student says, well, I need to get credit for this class. If they can prove that they took that class with that certificate, or if they had $2,000 with that, credit from the university, well, then they get credit from us. And the other thing about PLA is that our ACC evaluates students' transcripts when students apply for admission. However, they only evaluate student transcripts for students who have not completed any degree in the past. Okay, so if a student comes in, they've got 60 hours of college credit, but they never got a degree, ACC will evaluate the transcript. However, if the student has got a bachelor's degree in the past, that transcript is not automatically evaluated. Right? So students don't know, most students don't know when they walk in the door that I have a bachelor's degree and I can get credit for prior learning. So our student support specialist, the first thing she does when a student walks in the door and says, you know what, I've heard about the accelerated program or training, what can you tell me? She gives them a little golden slip of paper that says, have you had your transcript evaluated? And not only that, she writes down the name of the office they need to go to, who they need to talk to in that office, and she gives them that slip and says, after you've met with me, please go straight to this office and give them your transcript. Okay. Not only that, we looked at military training, particularly in the networking area, where we could do a very easy mapping of what they had done in the military and what we were doing in our networking classes, and we did that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we also looked at certifications, industry certifications, because in our area, you can get industry certifications. You can go and get like Microsoft certification, Cisco certification. So we looked at those industry certifications and based on that gave credit. So we'll talk about that. So what is the case for PLA at ACC? Well, it's a recruiting tool. You've got credit for prior learning, we'll give you credit for those courses. Guess what? Accelerates your time to a degree. One of the biggest reasons students drop out is because they can't see the finish line. I got a PhD at UT Austin in the orientation session. In the orientation session of the PhD, we were told that only 40% of you will go on to walk across the stage. When I got my master's at SUNY Binghamton, my master's in computer science, I'll never forget the first day of class, Dr. Michal Cutler, she was the professor who walked in. She said, I want you to sit down and look to your left and look to your right. So we did that. She says, only 20% of you will remain at the end of this class. And so yes, that was a weed out class, but when I hear things like that, it just bothers me to no end, because you are creating that wall in front of the student right at the outset, you're creating that wall. When you're telling the student, hey, you've got some learning, you've done, we are going to give you credit for it, that's going to take you faster towards completion, that's a good thing, right? Retention, the cost to degree, industry partnerships, we can tell our industry, this is what our students are coming in with, and this is what we're giving them on top of that. And student confidence, and confidence leads to completion. And the last thing is, it just makes sense, PLA. Our PLA at ACC, this is what we are doing. Like I said, industry certifications, course challenge exams. We have a few courses for which we've written challenge exams. And we're working with some faculty to get some more challenge exams in place. Military training and prior coursework. And prior coursework is where that yellow golden slip comes in, which he hands to the student, where they go get their transcript evaluated. And the next thing I'm going to show you is the reason why PLA is very important to us and why that golden slip becomes very important. Here is our student profile in the APT program. 65.8% of them have a degree, and we're not just talking any degree. We have had students come through the APT program with PhD in aeronautical engineering. We've had a gynecologist go through the program. Currently, this semester, we have 2 lawyers in the program who've been to law school and earned a degree in law. this was our profile of our student coming into the APT program. 65.8% of them already had a degree, and most of them had a bachelor's degree or above. 51% worked full-time. So 38% of them worked part-time, which was greater than 19 and less than 40 hours. To me, that's almost full-time, right? So 6% of them provided industry certifications. So this was a case for PLA at using in our accelerated program of training. And the biggest one was this one right here. That's a huge percentage.
So
yes.
was the rationale to attend to have a change of careers?
Yes, yes. Apparently the gynecologist who was in the program said, I'm sick of it. I just want to do something different. The lawyers want to learn about technology because they said it makes their work richer and it makes them diversified. The lady who is a PhD in aeronautical engineering, my husband's company actually hired her as an intern and then gave her a full-time job in the company. She was just brilliant and she just needed to learn programming, and now she's working as a web programmer with a PhD in aeronautical engineering. So go figure. And so we've had an amazing set of students, a very motivated set of students coming in. I had in my class, my online class, I had a student who had a master's from the architecture school in UT. To get into the architecture school in UT, you maybe need the president's recommendation. It's that difficult to get into the architecture school at UT. And she had a master's from there. Now she's coming back just to get a certificate in the accelerated program of training so that she can either use that knowledge in her current career or diversify. Yes.
Do you see in the completion data that is a significant?
Yes, these students are very motivated.
So this 65% is a higher likelihood of completion?
Yeah, very high likelihood of completion. Very motivated set of students.
Do you know how different that is? If that's
I haven't.
Significantly different?
We have the drill down data. Judy has all the data, and we have that available, but I don't have it here with me. Yeah, but this, it's amazing the difference it makes. And we screened all these students before they came into the program. And it's not like we invited students with degrees to come into the program. That's just the way it happened. And again, part of the reason is we're in Austin. That's a big part of the reason. If you took the same program and you took it to some rural community college somewhere, you would not have this student profile. You would not. Part of the reason is we're in the midst of the tech hub of the United States, which is here. So our student support specialist is the first stop for our PLA program, and she directs students to the appropriate office. She helps them develop a list of prior credentials. And she's also part of the reason our students succeed. She actually took all the courses in the APT program. She has an MBA herself. But she took all the courses, not because she wanted to see what was in the courses, but she really wanted that knowledge. So she was able to advise the students. For example, if a student comes to sign up for example, the Intro to Python course, she can say, hey, you know what? This is what's going to be expected out of you. You're going to be expected to do a lab every week. Or if she goes to take a Java course, you know what? If you ever think you're going to be late with labs, don't even try it in this class. Because if your lab is even 1 minute late, it's not accepted. So she can advise the students in that. She is also herself ex-military, so she can advise students on how they can get credit for military service. So she is our nugget of gold right there. So, okay, so what about the MOOCs? I told you about the MOOCs earlier, what all these different universities are doing. We know about House Bill in California that was introduced 3 years ago that did not pass, but similar House bills are being introduced all over the country, and it's only a matter of time before the MOOCs actually become a reality. So we can either ignore them, we can be the pigeon that closes its eyes and suddenly doesn't see its enemies, right? Or we can say, let's make the MOOCs our allies. Let's see how we can use them in providing credit for prior learning, and thus increase our recruitment and our retention of students. So any questions about the prior learning at ACC? How we, in our program, how we're doing it? I'm not talking about the whole college. I'm just talking about our program, the accelerated program of training. So our fast track to success, our partners are Alamo Colleges in San Antonio, Lone Star College, and Collin College in McKinney, Texas. We are the main grantees on this grant. Each of these colleges received $12,000 each to develop a CBE strategy and to develop a CBE program. Here, Lone Star College is actually doing the most unique thing. Lone Star College has a certification that they need for faculty to teach online. They are developing a certification for faculty to design and teach CBE courses, which anybody who wants to design and teach a CBE course is going to have to complete that certification. It's a huge thing because that can be used by any college around the state or around the country that wants to offer a CBE curriculum to do faculty development and faculty training, because that faculty development is very important. We did so many sessions with WGU coming in and other subject matter experts coming in and working with our faculty. Every month we had a faculty development session for our program. So the purpose of Fast Track to Success, we are calling it the Competency-Based Education Consortium, is to facilitate the development and implementation of competency-based education in IT education, in information technology or CS education. And that is our logo. It's the Texas Star without looking like the Texas Star. And these are some of the goals of Fast Track to Success. And one of the goals is to establish best practices for assessing prior learning. And so, in the end, does it work? Does CBE work at ACC? Yes, it does. We have APT students at 71% successful, comparable to a control group of 56%. So we increased our success rate by 15% over the control group. And by the way, the student profile that you saw, even our control group has a similar student profile. So females are 77% successful compared to males who are 67%, and black students are 69% compared to 52% with the control group. So we achieve success in many different diverse populations. These are our industry partners, just some of them. We have 165 total industry partners. And these are not just logos to list here. These are people who are actually working with us, hiring our interns, coming to our virtual job fairs, and they're absolutely impressed with our students. And they're giving these students full-time jobs. The latest company in this 165 is Amazon, which just signed on last week and made a commitment after looking at our program, after looking at the quality of our students, said, we're going to sign on and we're going to hire your interns. And we're going to come to your job fairs to recruit. So, so this is my contact information if you need to contact me. And I would like to show you the course structure. So this is our Blackboard. This is my Blackboard site that I'm showing you. As you can see, there are 10 competencies here. Okay, and in each one of these competencies, when the student comes into the course, the only thing they see is the course orientation. They don't see any of the other competencies. They don't see anything else. They just see course orientation on the first day of class that they come in. When they see the course orientation, they are required to complete it. Once they complete the course orientation, competency 1 is revealed to them. Once they complete all the activities for competency 1, then competency 2 is revealed to them. So it is an adaptive release, the whole course. They have to complete the milestones before they can move on further. And what is in each competency? So let's just go down and let's look at a competency. So every competency has an introduction, has learning objectives, it has Every competency has its own learning objectives, what they expect to learn. It has a read it section, what they need to read, what they need to watch, and it's a series of videos that they need to watch. They do a learning log, which is a journal, a reflective journal that they do. They do a lab, a project, which is a do it. So it's a read it, watch it, do it model, and reflect on it using the learning log. Not all faculty are using a learning log. I'm using it in my class. Then this is a third-party product, My Programming Lab, which basically makes them repetitively do some exercises over and over again so that they get mastery in that particular concept.
So what's the difference between the do it and the My Programming?
My Programming is, do it is actually a lab project. Labs account for 30% of the total grade. And My Programming Lab is basically a completion grade. Yeah, My Programming Lab is riddled with issues. It's a new product. And so there's, yeah. So here's a module for assessment, and here's a module for hands-on assessment. So every module in my class, in this competency-based class, is structured like that. Every single module has the same structure. So I can show you, so this is what the learning log looks like. And I'm going to, let's open it from here. So learning log is basically a reflective journal. Reflect on what you learned this week. Tell me the most interesting item. Tell me one thing you did not understand. This is very important. I've done learning logs. I've been teaching for 26 years. I used to do learning logs 26 years ago as well. Because in the classroom, when you have students sitting there, many of them are not going to raise their hand and say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said. Okay? So this gives them a chance to say, tell me one thing you did not understand in this week's learning. And then they have one more item, which is, what is the one study lesson you carried away from this week's learning? So they have to do this reflection. And so that's the learning log. And what does the student see? Here is the student's view. This is a student who has completed 4 competencies, and they don't see anything else beyond this. Only when they've completed competency 4, then they will see 5. When they complete 5, they'll see 6, and so on at the end. They have 3 checkpoints along the way because we have to satisfy SACs and say, are we assessing the students properly? Well, there's a checkpoint that checks for mastery of competency 1 through 3, that checks for mastery of competencies 4 and 5, and checkpoint that checks for mastery of competencies 6, 7, 8. And their course schedule is like this. The module, what is the module they're in? What are the module activities for that module? What are the submission requirements for that module? And what is the due date for that? So they can accelerate, but they can't go beyond that date. I've done that where in a few years ago where everything was self-paced. Everybody started in the last week of the semester. And then they were crying for help in the last week of the semester. So I said, these are your deadlines. You can't go beyond this. You can turn it in on the first day of class, but you can't go beyond January 31st in this one. Yes, 1 second, I'll get to it.
I'm curious how you develop the competencies themselves, and
So,
you said you have like 160 industry partners, and
We-
kind of focus in on what those.
right, so this course is a critical course in our curriculum because this is a course that is a prerequisite for every single second semester programming class. So in this course, we had to work backwards. Our second semester programming classes are the ones that the industry is really interested in, because what are they learning in advanced programming? What are they learning in the second level of web page programming? So we looked at what was in the second level, and we looked at what kind of competencies would satisfy the requirements of that second level. And we still ran this course by the people who were working in industry in Python and are people who are recruiting for Python, and they thought that these were the good competencies. And then we have a textbook, because all students still work very well with textbooks. There is a push towards open education resources at some places, but a whole lot of research that you see that students still want the textbook. In fact, e-textbooks even haven't become so popular with students because students want the printed books. And again, so that's how we develop these competencies.
So in the program, basically second level courses, can the students choose like which languages they want to do?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we try to advise the students. So we have a Java track, we have a C++ track, we have a Visual Basic track, we have a web programming track, and then so we advise the students that, you know, what is it that you want to do? What is the kind of job you want to do? So if the student says, well, I want to write test scripts. I don't want to do actual programming, but I want to write testing scripts. So then we guide them towards our software testing track, you know. And then if they say, well, I want to do pure application development, then we guide them to the Java track. You know, so we try to advise this, we try to encourage the students to come in to get advising. Not all of them do, because some of them, of course, know better than us. And so that's what we do.
So with your industry partners, because I'm assuming they probably have a variety of different languages, et cetera.
Yeah, and of course, some of them do, as Rex was saying, they'll come in and say, well, we want you to teach the students, you know, Rex.
Yeah.
Rex, REX is an internal language used only in IBM, nowhere else. So then we have to step in and say, no, because that doesn't add to the student's employability. I'm out of time.
Time for lunch.
Okay, so I have one more question waiting. So student employability, so we have to then say no. Yeah, go ahead. What was your?
So you provided some structure to it.
Yeah.
So if a student, for example, completes competency 1, automatically does the competency 2 open up?
Yes, it automatically opens up.
Okay, so then that student would probably finish a class in 3 months, whereas the others would do it in 6 months. So what's your timeline across?
Oh, it's one semester, the 16-week semester. Yeah. So let me just show you real quick. So here, if I go back to this, and I go here, and I say, let me go down here to a more recent competency. Because I did something in the beginning which I will never do because I almost jumped off a cliff. I said, the next competency will open up if they score 70% or better on the previous, which meant that I had to grade.
Right.
And I have 3 sections. I'm the director of this grant. I have 60 students. I wasn't sleeping.
Right.
And then my dad passed away. So, you know, it was a horrible time for me. So I said, okay, we're not doing 70%, we're doing attempt. So that's the adaptive release. Again, we're using Blackboard. You know, there are other better learning management systems, like Canvas is so much better than Blackboard, and other systems, but we're using Blackboard, so we stayed within that. So here's the Competency 6 grades. Here's the adaptive release. Lab 6, this is for Competency 7. They have an attempt for Lab 6. They have an attempt for Module 6 assessment, and they have an attempt for Module 6 hands-on assessment. Okay.
So the onus lies on the faculty to keep track of the students then at what?
Yes. So if a student hasn't submitted stuff, I will email them and say, hey, what's happening? And we have a phenomenal tutor at Cypress Creek who tutors using Adobe Connect. And so he tutors them online, he tutors them in person. Sadly, he's decided that a 4-year degree is more important to him than staying in tutoring, so he's leaving in August. So we have to find his replacement, which is going to be hard. So we've been real lucky with, but yes, faculty does, and actually the Department of Education is looking at that, and you all know that WGU is being audited right now by the DOE as well, and part of the thing they're looking at is substantive and meaningful interaction. And that is interaction that's initiated by the faculty. That's not a student writing, hey, when is Lab 8 due? And I say it's due on February 2nd. That is not substantive and meaningful interaction. That is not. So those are some of the other things. And one more last point that I have to make is, as these big players start coming in, MIT, Harvard, UT, California, you're going to see some of these rules changing, because these people have the ability to influence the Department of Ed. And some of these rules are going to change, and we're going, and I'm really glad these players are coming in, because that lends legitimacy to competency-based education. Currently, there are 600 institutes around the country that are doing either whole programs or parts of programs using CBE. So it is not a fad. It is here to stay, and you can ensure quality. I mean, my course is so rigorous. There is nothing short of rigor in this course. And in fact, some of the students who have dropped the course have dropped it because they were not meant for this format. And the reason they wrote for withdrawing from the course was too difficult. And so that, as an instructor, I have to sit back now and look for next semester how to support these students in the next semester. And what do I put out in my orientation before the semester starts so that it informs the student completely what's involved in the course. I showed in Dallas, I believe, and I don't have it here with me today. I send the students a 4-page welcome letter the day before school starts. And I lay out all the expectations of the class. And I tell them this is what's expected of you. And they have to respond to that welcome letter. They have to write me a response. You know, and then I give them a syllabus quiz and an orientation quiz that quizzes them on various parts of the syllabus. And if they haven't read the syllabus, they have to read it in order to take that quiz. And they have to get 100 on the quiz. They can't get 50% and leave it at it. No, they have to take it again and again until they get 100. You know, so some things I'm doing, but some things I need to sit back now and see what can I do to support these students more. So that's it. That's what my talk is. Any questions? No? Thank you.